There's a moment, often in the quiet of night or in the pause between distractions, when a subtle ache rises in the chest, a question, barely formed but deeply familiar. Why do I feel spiritually awake, but still stuck? You've read the books, you've journaled, meditated, visualized, affirmed, and yet something inside feels immobile, not broken, just quietly resistant, as if no matter how far you reach, the current keeps pulling you backward. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from trying everything and still feeling like you're circling the same invisible wall. You can sense the life that's meant for you. You can taste its edges, but you can't quite step into it. It's not that you lack belief. You believe deeply. It's not that you lack desire. You've desired with your whole heart, but still, it hasn't shifted. And that's a pain few people talk about. The pain of doing all the inner work and still feeling like abundance, true, stable, effortless abundance, remains just beyond your reach. Neville Goddard once said that we don't manifest through effort. We manifest through state. And state is not an idea. It's not a thought. It's not a mantra repeated in the mirror. State is a frequency. It is subconscious, habitual, embodied. And unless that state changes, unless it is softened, rewired, and inhabited in the body, no affirmation, no vision board, no full moon ritual will override it. Joe Dispenza expands this. Until you change the electromagnetic signature of your being, nothing changes outside. Your outer reality is not responding to your conscious effort. It's responding to the deeper broadcast, the one you forgot you were sending, the one your body remembers, the one etched into your emotional memory, your nervous system, your cellular rhythm. Here's the hidden truth. Your body is broadcasting more than your voice ever will. You might say, I am abundant. But if your nervous system is vibrating in fear, in lack, in grief, that's the frequency the world responds to. It's not punishment. It's just physics. It's just resonance. So if something in you feels seen right now, if you've sensed this gap between what you say and what you actually feel deep in your tissues, I want to gently invite you to stay. Don't rush past this moment. Don't treat it like another video on a long list. This may not be information. This may be remembrance. And if this conversation speaks to something tender in you, something old and quiet and waiting, I invite you to gently like this video, subscribe if you feel safe here, and share your experience in the comments. This space was made for those who feel deeply and who've silently carried the question, why do I still feel stuck? Let's walk into that question, not to fix it, but to understand what it's asking of us. Most people don't stay in a state of lack because they consciously choose it. They stay because it feels familiar. There's a certain emotional gravity to the pain we've grown up with, a weight that doesn't scream but quietly anchors. And so even when our minds long for something more ease, more joy, more flow, our emotional body keeps leading us back to what it knows. Not because it's right, but because it's known. Imagine a man who wakes each morning and repeats, I am wealthy, I am abundant. His voice is steady, his words are true. But underneath those declarations lives a story, a childhood of scarcity, where love was conditional, where every request for more was met with tension. His nervous system learned that abundance was not safe, that asking was dangerous, that receiving required guilt. So while his mind pushes forward into the frequency of wealth, his body whispers, no, that's not who we are. And in that conflict, the vibration collapses. Your nervous system is not your enemy, it's your GPS. And if you've never updated the emotional address, the coordinates etched by years of survival, it will keep rerouting you back to what feels emotionally congruent. This is why change often feels like sabotage. Why just when things start getting better, a part of you pulls away, retreats, contracts. It's not self-sabotage, it's emotional homeostasis. It's the body saying, this isn't familiar, this isn't home. And here's what's most tender. That old emotional state, no matter how painful, once protected you. It helped you navigate unpredictable terrain. It taught you how to belong, how to stay safe, how to get through, so of course your system clings to it. Of course it resists letting go. It's not your fault. It's not a failure. It's simply an old frequency still echoing through your cells, waiting to be witnessed, not silenced. Before we talk about manifestation or abundance or magnetic frequency, we must honor this, the invisible gravitational pull of what once saved us, because only when we see it with love can we begin to release it without fear. There's a subtle heartbreak that comes from doing all the right things and watching nothing change, speaking the affirmations, setting the intentions, visualizing with precision, and still waking up in the same emotional weather, still feeling disconnected from the life you can see so clearly in your mind. This isn't because you're not spiritual enough. It's because most of what you've been taught about manifestation leaves out the most important part: coherence. We've been led to believe that positive thinking is enough, that if we say the words, the energy will follow. But the universe doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. And that difference between words and being is where so many become lost. You can say, "I am free," while every cell in your body clenches with fear. You can whisper, "I am love," while your heart is armored from years of loss. The words alone do not carry the weight. The frequency does. Neville Goddard understood this with precision. He taught that manifestation is not repetition. It is assumption felt as real, not merely imagined, but inhabited. It is the quiet conviction that what you desire already lives within you. Not someday, not if you do enough healing, but now, in this breath, in this body, felt, known, trusted. Joe Dispenza mirrors this truth in the language of neuroscience. Your brain might think thoughts of abundance. You may hold images of wealth, connection, vitality, but if your body, your emotional memory, is steeped in dread, in lack, in anticipation of disappointment, that is the signal being sent. That is the frequency being broadcast into the quantum field. This is the rupture. The mind visualizes a future. The body replays a past. And in that incoherence, the manifestation collapses. Not as punishment, but because energy follows harmony. And if your inner state is fragmented, mind forward, heart backward, body frozen, the signal becomes static, unclear, incomplete. So the question isn't, why isn't it working? The question is, am I living the frequency I seek, or just thinking about it? Because until the vibration becomes one, until thought, feeling, and body move together in coherence, the manifestation remains theoretical, beautiful, but unreachable. Not because it's far, but because it requires your full presence. It sounds unthinkable at first, that a part of us might be addicted to suffering, that we might cling, even unconsciously, to pain we say we want to release. But the human nervous system is not loyal to what feels good. It is loyal to what feels familiar. And if chaos, disappointment, or deprivation were your earliest companions, then peace, ease, and abundance can feel foreign, unsafe, unrecognizable. Trauma doesn't just leave emotional scars. It programs perception. It reshapes what the body recognizes as normal. So even when abundance arrives, a moment of rest, a gesture of kindness, a glimpse of real connection, something inside tenses, shrinks, distrusts, not because it isn't real, but because it doesn't match the internal blueprint, and what doesn't match often gets rejected. There is a strange safety in pain when it's all we've known. It gives us a sense of control. However fragile, we know how to survive it. We know how to expect it. We build our identities around it. And little by little, the suffering becomes not just a feeling, but a home, a narrative, a familiar rhythm we return to, not because we love it, but because it proves what we already believe, that joy doesn't last, that good things slip away, that we are always waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is not weakness. It's not failure. It's a biological response. The body seeks predictability, and unless we gently update its emotional dictionary, it will keep pulling us toward what it has memorized, even if that memory is rooted in fear, even if that memory blocks the very abundance we long for. To shift frequency, we must first recognize the places where suffering has become identity, where we have confused pain with purpose, where our nervous system is rehearsing an old story that no longer reflects who we've become. This is not about blame, it's about liberation. Because once you see the pattern, once you feel its shape in your chest, in your breath, in your posture, you can begin to soften it, not by force but by presence. When suffering is no longer a signal of safety and joy no longer feels like a threat, that is when your frequency begins to change. Not as an escape, but as a return to who you were before the pain taught you to dim your light. True transformation doesn't always begin with a breakthrough. Often, it begins with a moment of quiet honesty, the kind that happens when no one is watching, when you pause just long enough to feel what your body has been whispering all along. This is the first layer, emotional honesty. Not the kind that demands dramatic expression, but the kind that gently asks, what is the emotional tone I wake up with each morning? What frequency do I fall asleep in each night? These are the bookends of your vibrational signature. And most people never realize that their mornings begin in survival and their nights end in longing. This unnoticed rhythm becomes the silent architect of their reality. The second layer is rehearsal, but not the kind you've been told. Not imagining the house, the car, the relationship, but rehearsing you, the version of you who already lives in the reality you desire. How do they breathe? How do they walk into a room? What is the weight of their silence? The softness of their presence? This isn't fantasy, this is identity. The nervous system doesn't respond to images, it responds to experience. So we don't rehearse the thing, we rehearse the being. And then, the third layer, anchoring. Because without anchoring, change floats. It stays in the mind, never reaching the cells. Anchoring is about creating new associations in the body, through breath that expands rather than contracts, through micro movements that signal safety, not defense, through voice tonality that resonates from the chest, not just the throat, through eye gaze that lifts, not avoids. These tiny shifts carry enormous weight. They recondition your body to recognize abundance as safe, as normal, as home. This is not performance, it's realignment. It's the slow, sacred practice of becoming emotionally congruent with the frequency you've longed for. Because when your thoughts, your emotions, and your body begin to move together, not in force, but in harmony, you are no longer broadcasting confusion. You are broadcasting coherence. And coherence, even in its quietest form, is magnetic. Let's pause, just for a moment, not to analyze, not to fix, but to feel. Notice your breath. Notice your body. Notice if something inside you has started to soften, or open, or simply become more aware. This is not about rushing toward change. It's about recognizing that something is already shifting, in the stillness, in the noticing, in the space between words. If you're still here, still listening, it says something beautiful about your presence, about your intention, not just to understand, but to remember. Because the truths we're exploring aren't new. They've lived in you all along, under the noise, beneath the trying, waiting for the moment they could be felt again. And perhaps, right now, there's a part of you that finally feels seen, not in a surface way, but in that rare, quiet, sacred way, where your inner life is recognized without judgment. If so, stay with it. This next part may not only clarify why abundance has felt blocked, it may reveal that the block was never a flaw, it was a form of protection, and now, maybe, it's time to thank it and release it. And if these words are resonating with something real in you, something deep and silent and long unspoken, then your presence here matters, more than you know. We often speak of tuning into higher frequencies, but we forget that we are also transmitting constantly, even when we're silent. Especially when we're silent. Your frequency is not just something you align with, it's something you emit. And what you emit is not based on what you want, it's based on what you are. Imagine a radio tower. It doesn't get to choose what to receive until it decides what it is transmitting. And most of us are trying to tune into abundance while transmitting fear, trying to call in love while broadcasting self-doubt, trying to manifest peace while radiating urgency. The signal becomes scrambled, not because your desire is unclear, but because your state is incoherent. One woman I worked with stopped asking for what she wanted. She stopped visualizing the perfect outcome. She didn't abandon her desires. She simply began being the state she once begged for. She walked her days not as someone hoping for love, but as someone already loved. Not as someone seeking success, but as someone who embodied worth. And without pushing, without striving, her life began to reshape itself around her frequency. Not because she earned it, but because she reflected it. The quantum field doesn't respond to lack. It reflects embodiment. It mirrors who you are, not who you're trying to become. This is why desperation repels and authenticity attracts. Not because the universe is punishing, but because it's precise. It can only return what matches your signal. So the deeper question is this: are you living like someone who trusts, or someone who is still rehearsing the disaster they're afraid will happen? Because you cannot emit gratitude and fear at the same time. You cannot radiate safety while bracing for loss. And it's not about perfection. It's about coherence. It's about choosing moment by moment to come back into alignment with the frequency of already having, not endlessly wanting. When you shift from tuning to transmitting, you stop seeking proof. You start becoming the evidence. And from that place, reality begins to echo you, effortlessly. There's a hidden loop many spiritually curious people fall into, and it's one most never see coming: the endless consumption of high vibration content, the constant chase for inspiration, the quick emotional spikes that feel like awakening. But beneath the surface, a quieter truth lingers. Much of what we call spiritual growth has become a cycle of dopamine addiction, a chemical high that mimics transformation but rarely sustains it. Dopamine is not the enemy. It's part of our natural drive, our spark. But when we begin to associate spiritual insight with instant gratification, with a temporary feeling of being uplifted, we condition ourselves to confuse stimulation with embodiment. We crave the next podcast, the next teacher, the next energetic rush. But when the high fades, we crash. And the frequency that truly manifests, the one built on inner stability, is lost in the noise. There is a gap between wanting and being. Wanting feels like movement, but often keeps us spinning. Being requires stillness, presence, integration, and too much stimulation, even from well-meaning spiritual content, fractures that presence. It overwhelms the system. It creates a hunger that can't be satisfied because it's built on consuming, not becoming. What's needed isn't more excitement. It's emotional sobriety, a calm, grounded return to the essence beneath the noise, the willingness to feel deeply, to stay with discomfort, to embody truth without needing constant external validation. This is the frequency that holds, not because it's dramatic, but because it's coherent. The universe doesn't respond to how inspired you feel. It responds to how consistently aligned you are. So if you've found yourself caught in the loop of endless searching, know this: you're not lost. You're simply being invited to slow down, to ground your energy, to choose depth over stimulation, presence over performance. Because in that steadiness, your true signal begins to rise. And that signal, calm, clear, unwavering, is what reshapes reality in a world addicted to noise. Noise of thought, noise of doing, noise of proving. Stillness can feel almost rebellious, unnatural, unfamiliar. But in the quantum field, stillness is not absence. It is not emptiness. Stillness is signal clarity. And in the language of vibration, clarity is power. Most people are broadcasting from a place of mental overactivity. The frequency of, I have to fix this. What? The urgency of, I'm not there yet. The hum of, what if it doesn't work? And though these thoughts are often silent, the field hears them, not through words, through vibration. It feels the restlessness, the self-pressure, the resistance. And in response, it reflects the same static back. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means aligning so deeply with what already is that the need to push dissolves. Neville Goddard spoke of the silence of assumption, that quiet, profound knowing that requires no performance. When you deeply believe something is done, you no longer beg for it. You no longer chase. You rest. And that rest carries a vibration more magnetic than any strategy. In stillness, you stop performing for the universe and begin partnering with it. You stop asking, "How do I get there?" and begin living, "I am already aligned with it." This is not passivity, it's precision. It's the moment the static clears and the signal becomes unmistakable. It's the moment you stop sending mixed messages and begin radiating coherence. Not with intensity, but with purity. Stillness is not weakness. It is a declaration that you trust enough to stop striving, that you believe enough to stop proving, that you are enough now to stop reaching. And in that space, spacious, open, grounded, everything begins to respond, not because you shouted, but because you finally listened. We often speak of belief as a mindset, a thought pattern, an idea to hold on to in difficult times. But Bruce Lipton reminds us that belief is far more than mental. It is biological. Your beliefs are instructions. They tell your cells how to behave. They shape the chemistry of your bloodstream. They influence the very fabric of your physical reality. And this means something both humbling and extraordinary. You are not passively receiving your life. You are participating in its architecture. But belief alone is not enough. If beneath your conscious affirmations lives a subconscious pattern of unworthiness, that silent signal will override your intentions. The field does not respond to your surface desires. It responds to your foundational state. And if that foundation is built on quiet self-rejection, the frequency emitted will be one of conflict. Wanting, yet doubting. Reaching, yet resisting. Greg Braden's work brings us even deeper. He shows that when the heart and brain move in coherence, they create a measurable electromagnetic field. A field that doesn't just stay inside your body. It reaches out. It shapes. It attracts. Coherence is not a concept. It's a vibration, a felt alignment that makes you not just a receiver, but a transmitter of possibility. This is the physics of receiving. Not pulling things toward you through force, but shaping the inner space they arise from. Reality doesn't come to fill your lack. It rises to meet your resonance. It responds not to your need, but to your embodiment. And the question isn't, what do I want to manifest? The question is, what emotional frequency am I most committed to, consciously or unconsciously? You are not separate from the field. You are the field. Every thought, every feeling, every moment of presence or disconnection is part of the signal you send. And the beauty of this is not in control, but in relationship, a sacred relationship between your inner landscape and the life unfolding before you. So as we close, I leave you with this gentle reflection. Not a command, not a step, just a question to carry with you into the quiet spaces of your day. What are you making room for? Not with your mind, but with your state. And if something in these words has touched you, if a light has flickered on in a place long dimmed, I invite you to remain part of this space, not for answers, but for the deeper questions. Leave a trace of your presence in the comments, if it feels right, because your voice, steady, soft, honest, is part of the frequency we're building together.